We're at 1 o'clock, so I am going to start going through our roll call here, and we'll let others trickle in. I'm just going to look at the participants on the side. So in the end, if I've missed you, if there was a phone number that I couldn't identify, just please let us know who you are. So I see that Brian Mitchell is here. Welcome, Brian.
Good afternoon. I also want to welcome Stephanie Mercado, who is our supplier diversity specialist here at Michael's Construction and who will often attend these meetings with or without me. So she is in attendance also.
Well, welcome to you both. And Lori, please do note that Brian is now with us with Mitchell. Beth Canestra is here. Good afternoon, Beth.
Hello.
Leah Collins-Borchak, my director, is on the line. Hello, Leah.
Hi, Madalena.
Craig Clements, thank you for being here from Pro Electric.
Hello. Hi.
I see. Hi. Darren is here from Kramer North America. Hi, Darren.
Hello, Madalena. Hello, hello.
Don Miller here from OES. Welcome back, Don.
Yeah, glad to be back from a little stint overseas, and glad to be working with the WIS.DB community again.
Good. We're happy to have you. Eric at South Star and with NAMAC is here. Hello, Eric.
Hello, everybody.
Nice to have you here. We've been asking you to lots of meetings lately. Thanks for sharing your time. And I see Jill Fairman is here. Hello, Jill.
Hi, Madalena.
Thank you for being here. Lori is here, our meeting organizer, Jeff Peterson at JPS. Greetings, Jeff.
Oh,
Thank you, and we'll address some of your questions today that you sent. I see Camila Bent is here from Harkinson. Hi, Camila.
Hi, Madalena.
Matt Grove, welcome to you from WTBA.
Hi, everyone.
Kathleen Panic from my team, our GFE analyst, is here.
Good afternoon.
And Quinn Long from Clear Cut Solutions, a DBE firm, is on the line. Welcome, Quinn.
Afternoon.
Rosalind Roberson from the DBE Support Services team is here. And let's see, my list disappeared for a moment. Sarah Upton, nice to have you here from Integrity. Sharon Nix, remind me where you're from, please.
Hi, I'm with Kramer North America.
All right, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Becky Soderholm at Transit here at WIS.DOT. Thanks for being here.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
Thanks. Okay, so I see a 414 number. Please tell me who you are. It's unmuted, so maybe it's someone who also is showing up with a name. Okay, I see Steve Krebs, of course, on with us. Anyone else that I did not mention?
Kyle from Integrity just joined.
Kyle, welcome. Great, thanks. Well, Steve, do you have some words for the group?
Good afternoon,
we'll
Ugo, NAMAC, Wisconsin.
Oh, good. Thanks, Ugo. Glad you're here.
Glad to see everybody.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else we missed? Okay, then Steve.
Sure, I'll make it brief. We have a very full agenda as always. So I just want to thank everybody for participating today, taking time out of their busy schedules to attend this, and the importance for everybody being here and getting your ideas and helping collaborate on making this program the best it can be. So thanks for joining.
Thank you, Steve. Lori, could you review the minutes for us, please?
Yeah. So the last meeting was held July 20th. The meeting began after the review of the minutes with the DBE Goal Attainment report given by Marlena Williams, With that, Engineer Marlena Williams reported that the DBE goal attained as of July's meeting was at 14.24%, 24.24%, which exceeded the overall DBE goal for 2021 of 21.41%. DBE program chief Maestri stated that assigned goals will go down from some projects having no goals assigned, and that the OBOEC will make necessary adjustments to project level goals if more federal funds are received for construction within 2021. She also reported that good faith effort reviews have decreased significantly compared to this time last year. Madalena reviewed handout item 5, DBE program updates, to include good faith effort reports and a copy of the uniform report in response to requests by NAMAC, and then open the floor for questions and comments. The next topic was the DBE program updates and let discussion. BPD Jill Furman stated that July began the electronic document submission process for DBE commitments using BidX, and reported that 50% of July bidders used the electronic option and 50% used the PDF option. Stakeholders can go to the HCCI website, Contractor Tips, and access video instructions on how to navigate BidExpress software. Also, DBEs are requesting that primes notify them if they plan to include them on commitments. DTSD Deputy Administrator Steve Krebs reemphasized the importance of reporting race-neutral participation throughout the life of the project. The next topic was the Mentor Protege Program experiences, and participants James Peterson's Sons and Wisconsin Interstate Contracting, Zignego Group, compared with Great Lakes PowerVac, gave updates on their experience in the program over the last year. Industry issues check-in and open agenda, and WISDOT opened the floor for questions. FHWA Representative Steve Stoddy provided information about a new pilot program offered by FHWA, and a link was provided in the minute to that program. Final comments from DTSD leadership were made, and the meeting closed at 2:30. That's it.
Thanks, Lori. Does anyone have any edits or changes recommended to these minutes? Hearing none, not seeing any hands up. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Beth, that was Beth. Okay, thank you. And a second, please.
I'll second it, Craig Clements.
Thank you, Craig. Okay, let's move forward then. Marlena Williams, I see you have joined us. Let's talk about DBE goal attainment. Marlena?
Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, well, let me get to talking. I got a few things I want to cover today and don't want to keep you long. So, good afternoon, everyone. I will share our current DBE attainment as of this meeting. This attainment will include construction, consulting, and post-let execution achievement. This meeting isn't intended to cover in-depth end-of-year reporting, for which I'll do in a future meeting, yet we will speak to some of those projections for this month's let, and that is in process at this time. And in general, in review of the federal fiscal year, which began October 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021, which is coming up in a few days, much of that focus will be through August, and then we'll touch on last week's let. So first, I'd like to share the joy and excitement that was shared yesterday on a phone call with Madalena. From the goal setting to the approvals at let, for which I'm charged, we are here very pleased to have attained overall achievement beyond the 12.41%. And that could not have been without many of the primes, the DBE firms, some of whom are on this call, as well as all the staff who assisted in processing this attainment throughout the federal fiscal year, WISDOT and non-WISDOT. While there's still more work to do, we certainly huge thanks to you all. Madalena and I, we've traversed our first federal fiscal year together, and I'll say we got a few more days coming up here, and we're just so grateful that we're grateful for Met goals through construction as well as consulting. All right, so we're a few days shy of the end of the fiscal year, so the numbers presented here are not final. Let me get something on screen for you. Come on, Microsoft Teams, work with me. Okay, I think you should be able to see something there. Let me know, anyone, if you are able to see.
I do see it.
All right. Okay, beautiful. Okay, thank you. So this is the report. By the way, this report shows for September, you'll see in purple, contract award amounts and federal funding for September. These are estimates at this time, and I'll touch on September in just a moment. Speaking of federal funding, I'm going to just take a moment to explain a phrase you've heard me introduce before, the slice of time. Each month's LET is considered a slice of time. That slice of time we focus on during each LET is at the time of bid, being mindful of contracts with federal funding provided weeks before the LET occurs, okay? Federal funding fluctuates through time. Federal funding for September, for example, was once. You'll see the projection there. I say once because that $84,460,419, I say it was once that because it's no longer that. Actually, 2 weeks later, looking at a different report, that decreased. In that same report, actually, overall program federal funding, which includes maintenance and other state-sponsored local programs, it changed to where there was over 29 million decrease in overall federal funding. So the point I'm making with slice of time is that it changes. And in this case, it has changed again and with our final numbers, we'll report that out to you. Once I jump on to September alone, it'll give me a chance to talk a little bit about the LET itself, and we'll see those final numbers come through once the commitments from the LET last week are fully processed. So in short, we do capture that slice of time as LET in this report because we want to address federal dollars respective to the contracts themselves as advertised for which those estimates were provided. Some of the adjustments we would see, and I'll structure this a little bit differently in future reporting for the federal fiscal year 2022, but some of the adjustments we see are as just described by federal funding, how that can change. There are modifications to original DBE commitments, which is also included here in the middle of the screen, that 14 million number you're looking at, which occurs after execution. There are rejections and deferred projects. For example, there are 2 rejected projects in August for which we've removed those committed dollars from the total here. Let me jump over to September. So for September alone, there was a widespread of goal values assigned for this month. Southeast region carries actually the highest goal assigned on that one, which is 10% for the State Trunk Highway 100 Brown Deer Road project in Milwaukee County. Its estimate came in at 24 million, and they bid under 6 million under that estimate at 18 million, with that bid commitment having exceeded that 10% goal. Without any proposals having been withdrawn, deferred, or rejected at this time for September, 4 of our 18 proposals are good faith effort and will be evaluated in the immediate future. Madalena may speak to GFE as well as Kathleen. Just what we can see for September right now, just as we're mid-process, we're looking at $98,607,000 and $823 for the total award contract, not including GFE. With federal funding, that number would be $77,394,176, and this is without GFE. We expect to exceed 100 million in total awards when we do include those for the total contract award. Another note to make is when we go into every letting, we're looking for X amount of dollars. We're expecting that those goals are met. From what we can see so far and just the files that have been met, even though we're still mid-process, we're looking for roughly $5,871,500. And when we say we're looking for it, that's what's assigned. So we know now that those goals have been exceeded. So we know that by the time we're done processing these, we will come in higher than that 5 million number. So we're happy about that. Once again, those commitments, once the actual commitments themselves are processed, we'll have a chance to assess what our neutral or our voluntary commitment comes in as. You'll see if you look at the bottom right hand of the screen, including our consulting as of the end of August 2021, we're at an overall Dbe attainment of 14.2, round up to 6%. So we're doing well here. We're thankful for that, and we'll continue to work.
Thanks, Marlena. I think that we'll, as we get through entering all our numbers here for September, that 14.2 overall will likely end up being adjusted down. However, we know that we still have many commitments left coming in for that neutral block there that you see at 14 million. We will collect through the end of October on all of the remaining commitments that happened through September. So there could be a significant amount of achievement still in that after contract execution. And of course, the whole month of September for consulting. So we felt very confident to be able to share with you that we will have exceeded the 12.41 overall annual goal. We don't know by how much yet, and we'll let you know next time we meet, and we can also share some demographics with you. At that point, we should be in a pretty good place to start processing that. So thank you very much, Marlena, for walking us through. Are there any questions for Marlena?
Actually, I'll add one more thing here, Madalena.
Sure.
Just to speak to the federal fiscal year of October through August, the end of August, for what we have completed in front of us. We set out in dollars, that looks like for the entire fiscal year, we set out for $83,980,991, and we achieved higher than that in conscious. Our commitments pull in just for construction alone, not considering consulting, not considering that extra attainment that occurred after execution. We exceeded and we came in 0.2% higher. So we're grateful for, just the overall measure and progress that we've seen through the year.
Absolutely. And maybe, Marlena, can you scroll up just a little bit, because I want them to see the headers of this report, because I think that it's row E. So that row E, or is it F then? F is the assigned goal. So this is what we start at on the projects, when you see the proposals. And so you can see that they start out pretty high there, because we're still trying to figure out, how we will meet the goals through the rest of the year. We only had that one project in October, so it's hard to gauge from that. But as we started moving forward and started overachieving our assigned goals, that's when we were able to start coming back off of the goals as well. So you start seeing us going, in that 5 and 6% range, and ultimately, a 2%, a point, almost a 1%, and achieved more than those. I know that was it around 6% that we set, 6 or 7%, I think, for September, because here we were looking at that $84 million coming in. That was pretty significant. We wanted to make sure we'd be in a good place. But you will see this moving forward. So in the November letting, because we'll skip October, assuming nothing else goes in there that would have federal funds, we won't have October DBE goals. So November will be the next time, and you'll see goals coming back onto the projects because we're in the new federal fiscal year. And then we'll adjust that as we're looking at actual commitments and starting to look at the achievement that's happening after contract execution. So, so just a note there as we are preparing for that next fiscal year.
And to answer your question, Madalena, so when the goals were set on this project, we were expecting that 8% attainment, or overall for the entire set of proposals, 8% is what we were looking to reel in. And so we'll be able to compare that once we are done processing September. And also a note, as Madalena was talking through the federal, climbing through the federal fiscal year, trying to assess how we set the goals. It's more than the goals themselves, but it does include where state funding, federal funding is allocated, those percentages that are assigned to each of those proposals. That plays into how dollars actually come in by way of commitment. I'm officially done talking.
No, you can keep going. You can keep going. Yeah, I mean, this is important stuff, and I know that it can be hard when we're looking at a spreadsheet and what do these different things mean. But we do really want to try to share with you how this process works, and then, you know, as we go through, how we're tracking it so that we can see real progress or areas where we need to improve. So we're feeling good about where we're at here at the close of this federal fiscal year. Unfortunately, Mary can't be with us from FHWA. I would like to hear her comments. I do see a hand raised. Matt. Yes.
Can you go back to the report quickly?
Sure. Can you do that, Marlena? Thanks.
Can you blow it up a little bit too? Maybe I'm seeing numbers wrong.
What you can do, Matt, also is if you hold, put down Control and use your little flywheel on your mouse, you can make that the size you want it to be able to see the screen.
Can you see it there, Matt?
So what's the total committed consultant and construction?
Yeah, so that encompasses, so the consulting side, the construction is what you see above, laid out there month by month. The consulting, those are dollars that are brought in the federal, and their total for projects that are consulting that have federal funds on them. We bring the numbers forward from consulting and we add it there where you see it.
Shouldn't that percentage just be the bottom one divided by the top one?
What percentage are you looking at?
The green percentage for total percentage attained.
So the
You're
total
saying,
percentage is,
right, you're saying would it ultimately be the 951 million is total funds, and then the 123 is total attained? Yes, but we don't have our final numbers in here yet. So ultimately it would be that total consult and construct committed, right, Marlena? That number, which is everything, divided by the total federal funds, and that'll give us our percentage.
I'm getting 12.9.
And that could be, yeah, I haven't run this, but yeah, I'm not sure if you have it, Marlena, figuring in the September letting, which is possible.
yeah, Matt, if you like, we can talk offline and go through the numbers just to make sure we're on the same page.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. And 12.9 is what you're saying that you get when you divide it, Matt? It could be, I mean, I haven't divided these two rows out right here. So I know that, yeah, right. So on what's shown there, since it's in draft form right now and we don't have our September numbers for either consulting or our construction lets in there, it'll be somewhere over 12.9 and between 14. So it's in that range. We know it's over our annual, but we just don't know quite yet until we process the letting. We'll bring in consulting and also that after contract execution, which now sits at 14 million, but it'll probably be around 15 or 16. So yeah, those numbers are the ones to be divided. It's just that we don't have the numbers plugged in fully yet. Okay, I saw you for a second though, Steve. Did you want to say something?
No, just confirming. I checked Matt's math, and it is 12.99. If you run that 1.3 divided by the 951, it is 12.99. So we should check that for you.
Yeah, we will. That number will get updated once all the numbers are plugged in. So probably
No.
we just shouldn't have had a 14% in there. I think that could have been the holdover from the last report because it's a manual. You have to add that in manually. But we'll share the updated report with you once the letting is processed.
Got it.
Okay, Brian Mitchell, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I'm curious. I don't have any handouts, and I was wondering if they could be resent. I must have missed them, or they must have gone astray. But I've been unable to get a set of.
Yeah, we didn't send out the attainment report because it's in draft form. So we don't want to send that out before our numbers are completely updated. So
I don't
we
even have
will
the
send it
agenda
out.
or the minutes.
Oh,
Are those sent out?
Lori, yeah, Lori did
Yeah, I'll
send
send
those
those
out.
home now.
Okay. And then we will send the attainment report once we finish processing this letting. And in the next week or so, we'll also get the consultant dollars. So we'll add those in, and then everything is in there except for the final processing of after contract execution.
Thank you.
Sure. Don Miller.
Yeah, I think it might be really interesting at our next meeting, once you know what this fiscal year is, to compare it to the previous fiscal year. Because I think there's some really good numbers here compared to the previous year. I think it would show a good number, a good story, and then kind of how we're trending, and it'd be fun to look at the last few years.
Sure. Yeah, we
I like
actually do that. Oh, sorry. We do
Sorry
that
about
for
that.
every fiscal year. And so my next step is to then add in the demographic layer. So at our next meeting, we could show you the last 5 years and where we stood through the first half of this federal fiscal year, including demographics. We can also then show where we're at in our overall, and then we'll add the demographic piece in so that we've got 5 years to look at all of that, and also looking at the GFE trends, which has started to look better and better as we progress as well. So thanks for that suggestion, Don, and maybe Lori, just put in the notes that we want to share that next time, so I'll remember. And Marlena, did you have something you want to add there? No. Okay, so Brian and Don, your questions are answered, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let us move on to DB program and letting updates. We have just had a letting. Kathleen, do you want to share that report for me, please? And I'll give a little update here, and then Kathleen will as well. Thank you. Go. So as she's working on that, I do believe we had 18 proposals in September. We did have a couple non-responsive bids this time around, which does always feel very painful to us and contractors, of course. In this case, we had done our regular reach out reminder a couple times. Hadn't heard back from the contractor on the missing documentation. We did then call. At that point, it was too late. But what it made us realize as well is that we really need to make sure that we've got the right contact information on file for contractors. So somewhere in your DBE documentation, include the email, address, and or phone number of who we should be contacting, because we're going to reach out to whoever's email is on a variety of documents that we get. So that might not be the person you want us to reach. And so if you let us know, then we've got the appropriate contact to reach out to. So Kathleen, I am seeing that, but I'm not seeing the full chart. You could just show me the top.
Right up here.
Yeah, and I don't know if okay, that's fine, but thanks. All right, so you see we've processed a lot of bids, 693 so far this year. That total non-responsive bid number, that encompasses the soft launch period. So really, up until May, those non-responsive bids were not actually called non-responsive. We did have one in August that was actually non-responsive. Someone did not actually hit submit in eSubmit and did not receive confirmation email for that month. That's a good tip for contractors. Make sure when you're using eSubmit, you check that you've got a confirmation email. It's one reason that we switched to it. Unlike Dbe Alert, which sometimes sends a confirmation email, sometimes does not, eSubmit always will. So if you don't receive an eSubmit confirmation email, your documentation was not received there. Again, we'll reach out and remind you best we can, but that may or may not line up. So make sure that you are hitting send in your eSubmit. And then the 2 September non-responsive bids were missing the signed attachment A's for Dbes. They were submitted with quotes, but the contractor told us they were unaware that they needed the signed attachment A's and didn't attempt to gather them from the Dbes. So overall, we still feel that we've made progress here. I think with those 2 exceptions, really, we're in a good place for lettings. Jill, did you want to say anything at all about bid X or anything there? I know I'm putting you on the spot. We did have some questions this month about that. I just wanted to give you a chance if you wanted to say anything.
No, sure. We did have a few questions that came up with things that we're going to be looking at our documentation again and enhancing that. Some of the things that came up during the letting is if we have an addenda, the EBX files come in as a zipped file. They need to be unzipped for everything to work with the bin file. So we're going to go into that a little more detail in the updated documentation for Bid Express. The other thing that kind of came up, or a comment we received pretty commonly, was the ability to search for the contractors. And we had looked at this when we were doing our initial testing because everything was based on the vendor ID, and initial discussions with people indicated that couldn't be changed. We did some more digging in the last week and were able to find a way to change the bin files. So now we will be able to search, or the contractors will be able to search on the name of the company, not so much the vendor ID. So if you type an M, it'll take you to all the contractors that begin with M. It's still not going to be a perfect system because depending how people named their company, whether they started with the company or some other initial or some spacing, or did we use and instead of ampersand or vice versa, those types of things will still create problems. One of the things we're going to recommend in the documentation is if you have any difficulties, to go to the all contractors list and look at how the name is listed in there, because it would be listed the same way in the Dbe bin file. So if you type it that way, that's the name you should be searching for. So those are kind of a few things just with Bid Express itself that we're going to be doing and continuing to look into a few of the issues that went on through the process.
Great, thank you for that. And a tip that I got from a contractor was that because I don't use Bid Express, so on the dashboard, it apparently will tell you that there's a new Dbe bin file available. So I've been telling everyone, look for that because it gets updated with the most current Dbes we have. So in the first round, on that bin file, you've got everyone who was certified through that point, and then we try to get one last update in for anyone who might have gotten certified in that 2-week window. So that is just a good reminder for everyone, download that bin file again. Okay, so any questions for Jill? Okay, thank you, Jill. So now we can move on to Kathleen to really give us an update on GFE. She is our resident expert, and she can share some information on, total projects we had, GFE requests, how do we look compared to last year, and what are some tools moving forward. So with that, Kathleen, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, hi everybody, good afternoon. So for this part of the presentation, we're talking about GFE, as Madalena indicated. Comparing fiscal year 2020 to fiscal year 2021, we can see we really trended in the right direction with last fiscal year, 93 GFE requests, and for this year, 2021, 54 GFE requests. So again, as Marlena indicated in her report, that's really just a great shout out to all of the prime contractors that really made GFE and DBE participation something that you really worked for. So thank you for everybody. Thank you everybody for that. We also thought it would be interesting to look at the region data, and what we did is we put the GFE requests in percentage form, and we looked at the number of GFE requests versus the number of awarded projects. So if we concentrate on the northern region first, we can see North Central region really had a great year. They only had 1 GFE request. Northwestern region also had a pretty good year with 4 GFE requests, but we also see that there's an area of opportunity with the Northeastern region with 20 GFE requests compared to 31 awarded projects. That comes into about 65% of GFE requests from this region. So this is just something to take a look at and take a harder look at to see how we can gain more DBE participation in this particular region. And then if we look down below, we have the southern regions, we have the southeast region and the southwest region, both in the 20s. About the southwest region had probably almost half or almost double GFE requests and almost double the number of projects. And although the southeast and southwestern regions do have slightly higher DBE goals, there are actually more DBEs in this area. So for fiscal year 2022, we are looking forward to seeing more DBE achievement in these 2 regions. So, so that's all I have as far as presenting this data on GFEs and the region data versus the regions. Does anybody have any questions or feedback?
Yeah, I think this is Jill Fairman. I'm just curious, the number of projects, is that just the number of projects with DBE goals set on them? Or is
No.
that
Yes, those are the ones with
yes.
federal funds. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else?
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Why don't you show us the tools?
The toolkit now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Let me, hold on a sec. Stop sharing.
So as Kathleen has gotten more acquainted with the GFE process, she has been working on a toolkit that emphasizes many of the areas that we've been working on with people, and always with the intent to increase participation. So here it is.
Yeah, so I'll just spend a couple of minutes just giving a very brief overview. As Madalena indicated, I am newer to this role, but over the summertime, I've really had the advantage of being able to look at multiple GFE requests that have come in across the state. And obviously, we always want to remember that meeting the DBE goal is the best way to demonstrate GFE. But with this toolkit, what I hope to do is give prime contractors some good resources and some practical examples of how to put together a GFE request, keeping in mind that, we have these two guiding principles that we always want to keep in mind on this slide too, which is the Dbe program exists to level the playing field by engaging and including DBEs in the bid letting process, and also to provide fair and continuous opportunities for the DBEs so they can be successful. We absolutely recognize that the GFE request is an administrative undertaking. So as I approach this exercise from this perspective. If I were tasked with completing a GFE request for a prime contractor, what best practices and workflow efficiencies would I follow? What forms and tools would I create so I could basically, in a sense, cut and paste from all of my documented activities into a document versus feeling as though I was creating, something completely from scratch at every bid letting. So there's two parts to this presentation. The first part is what you see on the screen right now, and that is the GFE toolkit. And what it does is it breaks down each section of the DT 1202 with some more information. The second part that I'll show you as well are the appendix documents, and these are some kind of practical samples and examples that I put together that hopefully might be useful to your company as you're looking at this. So as we scroll down, I will just, again, this slide right here, these are the components of the DT 1202. The first being the solicitation log, what we're looking for. We're looking for the, just these basics, the date the solicitation was sent, the type of solicitation, was it a letter, was it an email, an invitation to quote, and your communication method. How did you do this? Did you email it? Did you send it out, in the mail? Was it a phone? Did you use a third-party platform? And what the DBE response was. Was it a yes, no, a maybe? And always making sure that you're including that DBE response in your good faith effort documentation, whether that's an email or notation on your log, if it's a phone call. So, and again, I do have an example of this in the appendix documents that we'll look at in a little bit. This just briefly goes through your solicitation guidelines to send out that first solicitation within 10 days and then do a follow-up within 5 days of the bid letting. Selected work items documentation. Again, just a reminder to take a look at that sample letter that we have that kind of breaks down all the subcontractable opportunities for the DBE per bid letting, per proposal. Also keep in mind to break apart or think about breaking larger work items into smaller tasks. And I give an example on the slide as well. Documentation of negotiation with interested DBEs. This just gives some tips on how to document those conversations. What kind of conversations can you can include with that documentation, so we see that you're actively engaging with DBEs and having those further conversations to hopefully engage them in the process. This is a big one, the next slide, the award by work type and sound reasoning documentation. I did provide an actual example and a template. I see that this particular documentation varies across the board with the prime contractors across the state, but hopefully when we look at the appendix documents, you can kind of see a good example of what we're looking for. I want to reiterate as well, when in putting this toolkit together, I kind of looked at what I consider kind of the best practices amongst all the prime contractors across the state and try to kind of encapsulate everything into this one document. So it's hopefully it's very useful. Let's see, and then this again, back to the documentation of assistance with interested DBEs. This just gives some further ways to document and capture some moments in your documentation of the type of help that you're giving DBEs. One thing that I'll point out on this slide is I think there's maybe possibly some lost opportunities to document in the field assistance with the DBEs. You know, for example, if you show them how to perform something out on the field or you have a conversation out on the field, those are important points to capture as far as assistance and when you're submitting your DBE requests. So that's just a small reminder. And then the outreach opportunities. There's a lot that you already know about, you know, that we talk about on your, monthly basis or quarterly basis. I'm sure everybody knows the first one, which we have now renamed the DBE Workshop and Networking Summit, which was formerly the Golden Shovel event. Participating in Mentor Protege, reaching out between bid lettings, you know, to certain DBE and organizations and partnerships. Something that I think, you know, if this works within your company, that's a, you know, hopefully a relatively easy thing to do is just incorporating a website or, you know, a tab on your company that's specific to DBEs. And then on this next slide, you know, another idea is maybe hosting a small informal session of what typical subcontractable opportunities there are where DBEs can ask questions in a more informal atmosphere. And this could be something that you can, you know, possibly hold at your office in a small conference room or a conference room, something to that nature. And lastly, you know, as far as the toolkit is concerned, and I am kind of going fast through this, are just some tips for documentation. And one thing that, you know, again, we're working with many prime contractors across the state, and we recognize that, you know, there's different staffing ability in each of these, you know, companies that we work with. But one thing that I feel just personally that has worked for me is working on a shared site, such as Google Sheets or OneNote. They're super user-friendly, and it's a way for authorized users to enter the information versus something, you know, versus all of the information being funneled through one person. And that can be documenting your conversations, documenting your negotiations, you know, setting up a couple of different tabs to make sure that you're documenting everything properly. And then one thing that I'd want to somewhat emphasize in your documentation with your GFE requests is kind of to think in bullet points and not paragraphs. When you're kind of outlining all of your outreach opportunities, to kind of bullet point that out versus, you know, like large paragraphs. It's just helpful to kind of see it in that format versus a paragraph format. And then just work to create simple and consistent processes that are routinely followed between each bid letting. The documentation that we're requiring, I mean, a lot of it can be captured on like a simple form if you have the right process and it's routinely followed in the office. So I did very quickly go through the toolkit, but if there was any questions at this point before I go to the appendix documents, I'm certainly happy to field those.
You know what, why don't we, let's move to appendix, because I do want to see, Paul's going to have to leave it too, and I want to see if I can engage him in this next part of the conversation after we look at your appendix documents.
Okay.
So as you pull that up, as Kathleen said, you know, we're really providing these tools to you because good faith effort is what you are doing throughout the pre-bid and then through the life of your project. So good faith effort doesn't mean a waiver. Good faith effort is what you're doing to engage DBEs. So this toolkit is really meant to help you be able to achieve goals and work with DBEs, establish those relationships that will be important along the way. And as you're documenting, you know, maybe you meet the goal and you don't need to submit that documentation, but you've been collecting it along the way. And so if you do need to pull it together, then you've got it. Okay, Kathleen, appendix.
Okay, so in addition to the toolkit, I did prepare some appendix documents. The first appendix is just a reminder of what constitutes a substantial conversation with a DBE, and this is all in ASP 3, which it's all in ASP 3. let's see, again, the sample solicitation letters here, just giving an example of how to identify those subcontractable opportunities with the proposals. And then the Appendix 3 is where I give an example of, and I'm sorry, there we go. Appendix 3 is where I give an example of the solicitation log. What I did with this solicitation log is I went to the DBE directory and I did a search for all the work types that I was looking for. And then you're able to obviously pull this up in Excel spreadsheet format. So I just modified some columns. I took the columns that I needed. I needed email addresses, I needed phones, obviously the name of the company. And then I indicated here, I created on these 4 proposals, we were sending out an invitation to quote via email. And then a couple days later, about a week or so later, for these same proposals on this date, we did a phone call. And then I indicated, by color code, red meaning no, green meaning yes, blue meaning maybe, what the result was from all of the contact that I gave or that we had. So you can see in this this column here, which I'm sorry, I can't scroll all the way over, but the last column is a notes column, and it indicates, what my notes were. If I had a conversation, if there was an email, the email came back that they're quoting, just proposal 4, or just proposal 8 or whatnot. So this is something that, exists right now for all prime contractors to use. And, it might be a way to help better, organize the solicitation log. And then obviously for you to keep track on, what the response is, with each prime with each DBE. And then lastly is the intent to award and sound reasoning documentation example. So I created a template and it's at the end, it's a blank template, but this puts into place, the documentation that we're looking for as far as how to organize all the quotes that you've received, both DBE and non-DBE. And so for each work category, I just created, fictional names, fictional numbers, but then created some sound reasoning of like, yes, we went ahead and we awarded this to this particular DBE. Landscaping, for example, we went with a non-DBE, but our sound reasoning included that this particular DBE PQ landscape company, they had substandard work, and MM landscape company, they just had partial DBE participation, and there was a price difference involved. But it just kind of gives an example of the rationale that we're looking for, and also a way to organize all the quotes that you're receiving. And then, a space here to just, redo the math and make sure that you're on the right track. And this is the template that I provided as well. So that is it. That is all I have.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. I'm really glad that you were able to share this. I'm going to ask that if anybody has questions, hold them and we can come back to Kathleen when we get into this next section, because we're still going to focus on DBE program, DBE items, but I do want to try to get Paul into this conversation related to Cuff trucking. We recently had realized, and sorry, did I miss someone having a comment? No? Okay. Commercially useful function, you will recall, is an effort that we have been undertaking in all of the regions now to ensure that ultimately DBEs have control of their forces, have control of the work that they're doing, are using their own equipment, and generally are doing the work that they committed to do on the attachment A and the 1506 and or DBE commitments. So We found in doing some cuff monitoring in the Southeast region that there are often trucks that do not go onto the actual work site, but are moving materials between some other sites that will be eventually used on the site itself. So we pulled together a group to discuss this last week. Was it already only last week? It was this month. And so members of my team participated, as well as some representation from the region. Kurt Flearl was there, and then Perry Adderholt participated from, well, in that context, it was Matthew's overall groups. We had representation from South Star with both Eric and Bryant there. Pat Kelly, our cuff coordinator, was there. From my team, Paul, Maria, our other engineer, was there, and Matt Grove was there from WTBA. So I think I covered everybody. So we wanted to have this conversation as sort of an initial way to address this potential issue, because if we can't verify cuff on these projects, it could represent quite a lot of commitment that could not be counted towards DBE credit, and we have to make sure we're doing things the right way. So Paul, in the 4 minutes that we have that you're still here, do you want to share a little bit about what we came up with in terms of how we might be able to verify this credit, and then maybe we can bring Matt into the conversation too, and maybe Eric, who are both there too.
Yes, indeed. Good afternoon, all. So as Madalena indicated, this was a discussion regarding our, what happens when our firms are moving stockpiles, which generally is off-site. Couple of questions that did come about were, of course, is this industry-wide, which we now understand, yes, it is, in which we do utilize, or contractors do utilize, our DBE firms offsite, essentially to move this stockpile from one point in on the offsite, essentially just moving it into the stockpile. A clear example that we had was moving liquid asphalt, which from our perspective, of course, we're looking more on what do we see. We of course want to look, do we see these DBE firms on the construction project, and when they do show up or they don't show up, we also have to, cuff monitoring comes in and becomes involved, and we have to, monitor all this information. Is this essentially a compliance, is this something we have to monitor from a compliance standpoint? Well, the idea is no, because 100% of the time this work is off-site. For trucking in particular, we're looking at, when we discuss in de minimis, and we're looking dedicated sites. Sometimes some of these sites are non-dedicated, which is it's not primarily for that project itself. We also reviewed how can we essentially monitor it. Well, one of the things we did come about, or we did review, which is a great thing we're bringing up now so we can have additional questions if needed, is, well, one, how do we monitor that that DBE firms who are working off-site, which traditionally will not fall under our cuff monitoring purview, how do we essentially monitor it? We had Kurt Fierro, who's from our engineering department, who actually came in with a great point, which is, 90% of the times if it's not commingled with other projects, meaning not only WISDOT projects, but also, county projects, municipalities, if we can clearly identify that, that's one of the pieces that will help it go a lot smoother. But also, if the prime contractor can effectively identify who the DBE firm is, materials to be hauled, and when essentially this offsite will take place. That'll be a great point, because then that way the engineers will be able to notify, put a notation in there and notify the contract compliance team, but also as well as the cuff team, because That way the communication starts. We did look at some solutions to it. One of them being, well, updating our DBE commitment form to allow us not only to identify the types of materials hauled, but also giving the contractors or the prime contractors the ability to mark if this is going to be an on-site haul or an off-site haul. And that was a good one. That was a good recommendation by just about everybody in there. And also the follow-up by the prime contractors to the engineering firm, the engineering group, just telling them, hey, you know what, we have this DBE who's working on this project, but they're going to be performing work off-site, and this is the type of materials they're hauling, and identifying it. Plus the addition of having the civil rights and compliance system, and in the near future going into AWP, it makes it a lot easier because we can manage the payments going from the contractor to that trucking firm in all cases. Yeah, that was just a brief overview of what we discussed. Madeline, I don't know if there were some additional notes on your end.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I know you have to go now, so thank you for just bringing us kind of up to speed there. I could take it forward now with the rest of the group. I was curious if Eric had anything else to add at South Star. Eric, you had talked about the possibility maybe of an affidavit that the trucker who's on these offsite hauls would submit to their hiring trucker. Am I stating that right?
Yes, and I think I didn't bring up the idea, but I supported it. I'm okay with it. I don't think it creates too much additional work. To be honest with you, I never knew this was an issue because I've always assumed that it was already credited toward the project. So from my standpoint, I never saw it as an issue because I didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. But I did support the idea of having affidavits because it's something we've always done. It's not new, it's nothing different. And how it gets credited, I think that's more your lane, not mine. I just provide the trucking.
Right. Yes. Thanks for that. And I think we didn't know that it was happening either until we really started concentrated efforts of cuff monitoring. And at that point, realized we don't have a way to verify that the DBE did this work. I mean, they've never been on the job. The project engineer hasn't seen this DBE. So we need to come up with a strategy, because it sounds like it is ordinary practice according to everyone that we've talked to. And we did want to bring it to this group as well, because we have other contractors who participate in this meeting. And, maybe there's some other thoughts here. What we are trying to do is come up with a simplified method to do this type of verification and be responsible to the commitments that we have and being compliant with regulations. So that's kind of a tall order to simplify and be making sure that we're responsible at the same time. So we've come up with a couple good ideas here, but we wanted to just bring it to this group to see if there was anything else maybe that we should consider. Jeff is on here. Is this something that you're familiar with too, Jeff, and would have any ideas for us in terms of what we should be considering in verification? Hey, Matt, I see you have your hand up while we wait for Jeff.
I was kicked off.
Yeah, I think it's.
Oh,
I think it's
I'm
just
back on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't know what. Do you want to use here? No, let's use this.
Oh, okay.
The internet doesn't work so good up here in Medford. It's a long ways up here.
You're out in the sticks. Did you hear my question, Jeff?
I did not. Could you repeat it, please?
I was just wondering if you had experience with this, this type of trucking that we're talking about, because it does sound like the offsite trucking that's associated with a job happens frequently. And we had some suggestions for how we could monitor that. So I was curious if you had experience with that and And any ideas about monitoring as well?
Well, I missed part of it because I was kicked off, so I guess
Okay.
I'll have to defer till later. to get some
It's
more
okay.
information.
Yeah, we're just looking at how to do some cuff monitoring on trucking. Matt, what are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it's important for the group to understand what the issue is. So the staff in the field sees a commitment for trucking, but they don't see those truckers on site. And it's important to, and I don't know what's going on in the field, it's important to make sure that this doesn't get confused with any sort of Davis Bacon or de minimis or dedicated or non-dedicated. I guess the confusion is that you've got a commitment, you don't know if that work's being done. It's not uncommon in a variety of different products to not have direct drop deliveries on a project site, and that's a whole different issue that we've gone through as far as commercially useful. So the issue is how do you verify that the delivery was for that product that was incorporated into that project, just so everyone understands that. So I think we see the issue. It's legitimate DB dollars. The payments can certainly be tracked. But that the fact that if you're trying to administer it strictly from the project, you're not going to see this portion of it taking place.
Right, you summed that up well, and so I think that that's where we're trying to align a variety of areas, and you're right, this is not a Davis Bacon issue for us. It's strictly commercially useful function monitoring. So we'll work on it a little bit more and bring some information back to this group. I think that this will likely cause another change to the attachment A form so that we could capture more information there and move that forward into our cuff monitoring. I'm not certain right now that's the only change, but I think that that's probably going to be one of the steps we're going to need to take. So stay tuned. We'll give you more information. Anything else you would want to add about that, Matt?
No, I think we understand the issue and we talk through it. We get it. It's just like a lot of other issues that we've talked about. We don't want it. It can be difficult to track if you're trying to tie it to specific quantities and things like that. And I think you heard that from your own people internally. I don't, you don't want to create such a burden in that process that it essentially makes it so you don't want to use DB truckers if you have to do a whole bunch of reporting. So I think you have to find something reasonable. And to a certain extent, I want to make sure that when we do this, there's a second, advantage to this is the fact that it'll make sure that everyone understands that what you're counting for DB trucking should be the materials that are incorporated into that project. I don't want people to have misunderstanding of that. So I think we can get there. It's just don't make it a burden, I guess. Too much of them.
And which the point you're making, Matt, is good. This is Marlena speaking. Forgive me, I wanted to join that meeting. I had a medical emergency that week for which I was not able to attend the meeting. For the group, and I think the people that were in attendance to that meeting understand that when you're talking cuff monitoring, there needs to be a visible observation of that work that has been set out for the DBE commitment at the beginning of that project. So when you're trying to track that commitment and those monitoring by way of cuff, they notice that, hey, I did not visibly see that truck. What does this mean? Is this compliant? And so when you're trying to assess that from the WISDOT side, we are considering what is contained in federal regulation. We are held to that. And we're also trying to consider, because we know, for example, some of that trucking, they haul plant aggregate. We know that that haul is only tied to the project itself. However, that WSDOT staffing at the project level did not witness that travel. So with this conversation, we are looking for that feedback that does incorporate the realistic expectations, the realistic needs that may be needed from, say, WSDOT staff at the project level, or what are other things that may come into play for the prime of the DBE that we may not be able to capture just by noticing that we have a red flag or something we need to look into deeper for by way of cuff. Hopefully that was clear.
Yeah, thank you, Marlena. And we'll continue the conversation. You know, sometime in the winter, I think, is when we would anticipate having something formalized that we're able to share as things are a little more calm for everybody. So yeah, we'll keep you updated. And if anyone thinks of something in the meantime that you want to share with us, please do so. So quickly, I'm going to talk about mentor protege credit, because I would like to move on to a conversation about COVID impacts before all of our DBEs depart. I saw Ugo and Eric had to leave. So Quinn, Craig, Anne, don't go anywhere, please. Mentor protege training. One would think that since mentor protege program is a recommended way to help the business development of small firms, namely DBEs, that the work that would be done between a mentor and a protege would receive DBE credit, even if it's in a training area. So where we've run into the question is, can we award DBE credit when DBE does not actually have the NAICS code to work in a particular area, but is being mentored on that area by their mentor? My read of the regulation says no, even though that seems counterintuitive. I cannot find permission for that in the regulation. I have reached out to FHWA. Mary Ferlenza indicates that that's her initial read as well, but she's reached out to headquarters in Washington. So I will have an answer for that hopefully this week. But right now, unfortunately, it looks like we can't give credit for training. If we can find out a way to do that, it makes a lot of sense to me that we would. So, Jeff, I'm guessing you have something to add there.
Well, right. How do they get qualified for that code? Because that was how it started. Was they asked, and I don't understand the codes exactly, that NAICS code or whatever it's called, but how do they get qualified if they don't have experience, and how do they get experience if we can't help them get the experience?
Right. You know, so they would get experience, but not getting credit for that particular piece of the work. So if they were working with you, in this case, they would give you a quote that would show this amount of our work is going to be available for DBE credit. This amount of our quote will not. And then you would just count the amount that's creditable towards your commitment. It's possible that the entire job they're working on you with would not be creditable if they're not doing anything outside of, you know, that particular wall you were looking at.
How do they figure out the criteria to get qualified for that code? I mean, they just she actually got COVID, so that's why she's not on the call today. But Renee,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I guess I don't know what letter you sent her saying she's not qualified, but how does she get qualified? What does it take?
Right.
So many hours, so many square feet of building a wall? What does it take?
It is a certain amount of experience on that job that our certifier would look at. And I think in this case, because, you know, and all variables are different, but she's got some crew members who have experience here and working on the job with you. If that worked satisfactorily, then, you know, potentially that means next time around, she's got that NAICS code approved. Marlena, you could weigh in here too if you have some thoughts about that, because I know you were part of the review process in determining, you know, is this NAICS code comparable to that one, which while outside the realm of this conversation in general, I think is helpful for people to know, because as a number of DBs are on the call too, we want you to look at getting expansions and working outside the codes that you might receive right now credit for. But Marlena, you know, when we see that there's this work type is outside of that NAICS code, what is your process for evaluating that type of work?
Well, I was actually just going to chime in on something that you were saying earlier. When you speak, the question that I originally had started with the thought of expansion. Expansion is permissible. In fact, that's what part of what the DBE protege firm goes into this for. Oftentimes they are looking for that chance to acquire that new skill. And so expansion is the way to do that. Some of the up-to-date information that you had presented here from Mary Falenza, I'd have to probably get caught up to speed with you offline to get the full details listed there. But certainly these proteges are welcome to, by way of expansion with the Mentor Protege program, acquire those skills, learn those skills, yet while they're doing this with their mentor, their DBE, their non-DBE mentor, they are allowed to get crediting for work that they are not technically certified in that time by way of expansion or on the condition of the relationship or the mentor protege agreement. And the way that they're able to do that, as you had mentioned in another form of correspondence, Madalena, which ties to 49 CFR Part 26 with the Mentor Protege program, they are able to get crediting, say, that first time, but they aren't, and not the second time, but it's in an alternating pattern. And that's the way that can occur. It does not tie them.
So hold up, Marlena. I just want to stop you right there, because I don't want to get any misinformation out there. And I understand why you've got the sense of the regulation that you do, but we have to halt it there, because we are not able to give any credit for training. So if a DB does not have an NAICS code in a certain area, we don't have a way to credit that. Right now, Mary Falenza is looking to see if it's possible to get credit, but right now we don't have a way. So Jeff, I'm going to follow back up with you on that. I don't think we have a specific answer for you either, unfortunately, on how much does it take. It is a case by case basis.
Just so you know, I agree with you there, Madalena. It's just by way of expansion, I think, for which we need to make it clear to those who are inquiring.
I see a hand up, but I can't see whose hand is up. Sorry. Oh, Quinn. Yes, please, sir.
So this was my whole question before the meeting, and you guys are talking about expansion. So I reached out to Charlene about getting the codes to add under my company this morning. And so you're saying, say I want to add a service, a removal service, a trucking service to my company, I can do this with my mentor for the remainder of the year, and they can get DBE credit even though they're not training?
No, sorry. I want to remove any confusion here. So you, and for everyone else, Quinn is certified through Milwaukee County, so that's why he's mentioning Charlene. They will work with you specifically about how to do an expansion, but ultimately an expansion requires that you have a technical competency in a particular area of work and the equipment to do that work. So it's going to just be different based on what type of work you're looking for. So for you, if you're wanting to add trucks, well, you're going to need to own a truck and have a CDL. That will be different than being able to install this type of wall that Jeff's protege is looking to install. So case by case, but talk with Charlene, because she will be able to tell you what you need to do to get that expansion. We absolutely want DBEs to be looking at areas of expansion. Sometimes it's very easy. It's along the lines of what you already do. We've seen this where maybe somebody installs BeamGuard already. They could also install posts and signs. those could be easy sorts of transitions, whereas something that requires a different type of skill set, and what I understand from Marlena's assessment of this type of wall installation that Jeff's protege was looking at, that's outside the type of work she already does and would need to demonstrate additional technical competency on that. So I hope that helps a little. Does that answer, Quinn?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
So Madalena, this is Leah. So for clarification, it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is that we have a question out to Federal Highways, and then Mary for Lindsay will get back to us on the clarification, and then we'll follow up with this group to share the information that we get back from Federal Highways regarding whether or not the scenario that was described would result in a DBE credit.
That's right. And
Okay.
we're hoping there could be some read for that.
Right, right.
But we don't see it. So
Yep. And I understand that.
certainly,
So
certainly mentor proteges do get credit. So
yep. So everyone, yep. So everyone will get back to you on what Federal Highways you know, what they indicate what we're able to do, and we'll get a communication out to everyone.
Yes, great, thank you. Any questions in general about mentor protege before we move on?
Well, just part of this presentation today was fair and continuous opportunities. We're trying to provide that, then we're not going to get credit for it. I think everybody's kind of shaking their head over this, but I'll let you check into it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Jeff. I think we should be able to give credit for training. So if we can find the way that is permissible in the regulation, then we'll absolutely do it. Okay, thank you. And clarification, training outside of NAICS code. You're already getting credit within NAICS code. It's outside the NAICS code. We've got the question on. All right, let's talk about COVID impacts. I know we've still got several DBs here, and I'm happy to hear from anyone really who has input on this. But as we've gone through a major wave of COVID and starting to regain some sort of stability, or really wondering if DB firms would be willing to share some of your experience of the impact on your business from COVID. And Leah, I'm happy to have you weigh in here if you have specific questions as well, because I think we're really trying to get at, you know, what have you experienced, and then what are the types of supports and or resources that we might be able to offer based on what you've experienced. So maybe Quinn, could we start with you, since you are new to this group, and maybe you could just introduce yourself too, so that this group knows who you are and what your business does.
Sure, I'm Quinn Long. My company is Clear Cut Solutions. I do concrete sawing and drilling, and I'm looking into trucking, adding trucking right now. I'm a newer business. 2 years was this May, and the way COVID impacted me was after my second job, COVID hit. So I want to say end of January 2020 to November, I didn't get any callbacks. So for about 10 months, really, I don't even know how I got by. Like, and I didn't know about the estimating world in DOT. So going into January 2021, I started estimating, and the DOT paired me up with Pfeiffer, and Pfeiffer Brothers has explained a lot behind the whole bid letting process, and I was able to add a service to my company. So I'm still growing, and I've had a big project. I'm on the rapid bus transit project in Milwaukee, and learning the ins and outs of the DOT and what the norms are. As far as COVID goes, executing work in the field, hasn't affected anything for DOT work, but I have been on like private job sites where they want you to do safety training. They want you to wear a sticker on your hard hat that says you got the vaccine and or you're vaccine aware. And if you wear a sticker that you have the COVID vaccine, then you need to carry a vaccine card, and you're subject to getting that checked while you're on the site. And then you got to take your temperature and wear a wristband. So I don't know. I'm always on my own. I'm not around, big groups of people working around me. I'm loud, I'm messy, and they give me my space. So it doesn't really stop me from working anything about COVID.
So do you feel like after that lull, you were able to sort of re-engage and step back into things with, I don't want to say minimal impact, but you're in a good place now?
Yeah, I'm right back on track. I started my first job was the biggest job I had ever been on in my life, like outside of being self-employed. And my next job was 2.5 times bigger than that. And then COVID hit. So now June was a great month. July matched everything I did the year before. And now I've got growth opportunities, and it's what I thought it was going to be finally.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that your trajectory is going in the right direction. And we're definitely here to keep giving whatever support we can. I'm happy that mentor protege pairing is going so well.
Yeah, and I have to say that it's better than any other program that I've been involved with, and it might just be who I'm working with, but they've made things really relaxed, open door. I can call anytime and ask any question, and I don't feel like I've ever been a burden.
Great, that's great feedback. Thank you. I'm going to move on to Anne to see if you have any thoughts you want to share with us about COVID impacts. Anne Nashek is here. Sorry, I missed you on roll call, Anne. How are you doing? You're on mute.
Is that better?
There you go.
All right. One thing we're running into is increase in material costs that we did not, we didn't think would be happening to us when we bid the job in 2019. Some of our steel prices have gone up like 35%. And when you're using thousands of tons of steel on barrier wall projects, no one's willing to come forward and help us with that. So it's been a huge hit on us, let alone employees being sick and figuring out all these federal programs for employee retention tax credit and all that kind of stuff too. So
sure.
I'm just juggling a heck of a lot more than I ever was before and trying to fight to try and get recouped for, material costs that had nothing to do with us. It's all COVID because they shut down mills and stuff. So
right. I know that sounds really challenging.
There now that I'm aware of that can help us, except maybe an inspector talking to the DOT, and so far we haven't gotten anywhere yet.
Yeah, I know Beth is on the line, and I don't know what DOT does. I was actually working with a Dbe. We were reading the spec together, and it said something like, unless there's a national shortage declared, that there's no allowance. Is that right?
Right. That's correct. I guess there has to be an industry-wide shortage and basically a lack of availability. And even in those situations, there are no cost adjustments. We may be able to give you, excusable non-compensable delays, what it's called. So we might be able in those situations to get time on a contract. But yeah, we don't make payments. and if we're giving time, it's because of an industry-wide shortage. So, we are constantly kind of checking in. We certainly appreciate that, delivery and supply chains have slowed down drastically. They've slowed down everywhere. And, that certainly is impacting folks. A lot of those things, are starting to be a little bit more known to folks. I think a lot of, suppliers of materials are pretty upfront. Our lead time is now, 6 weeks, where in the past it would have been 4 weeks, or, it's now 10 weeks, or whatever it is. And people need to figure that in when they're bidding projects. And yeah, it's a very volatile market. Certainly respect and appreciate the challenges, because I think they're pretty great.
Thanks, Beth.
I mean,
So
basically that leaves us at, we have to bid our next job higher to cover their, costs that we incurred on the previous job. And then we might not get the work, That's
Yep,
kind of the big
and those
struggle
are
for us.
the challenges, right? It's
Right.
it's everywhere. It is everywhere.
It sounds like, I mean, probably everybody is experiencing this, and so maybe everybody's quotes go up. I don't know that that's good for you, and certainly, I mean, we want the best prices on our projects, but you're right. As a business, somehow you have to try to mitigate these losses. Beth, was what you were saying basically that we might be able to offer some relief in the situation where that delay would ordinarily have caused maybe liquidated damages, and so if we can extend that project delivery time, then that would maybe not be an LD passed on?
So if there are industry-wide shortages, we can review, and if it's a controlling kind of thing, controlling item of work that would put the project off schedule, we could consider an excusable delay, which would, yes, would
Okay.
essentially alleviate those liquidated damages. That being said, we haven't identified any industry-wide shortages. We are talking and looking at a number of items in the pavement marking area. There's some effects with resins and things. But we reach out and we talk with the suppliers, and I've heard that they're prioritizing our work and stuff. And so, right now, we don't have anything that really we've determined to be an industry-wide shortage that would affect that.
Okay. Thanks for adding that. Anne, anything else you want to share with us?
No, that's about it.
Okay. Thank you. Craig, you are on the line. Yes?
Yeah, I have
Craig
the same
Electric.
issues. PVC prices is tripled. My office works remotely. Traffic signals are next to impossible to get. The same thing everyone else is experiencing. Keep trying to push forward.
Sorry, I think we've got a bad connection, but what I'm hearing really is you're experiencing those same kind of issues with pricing going through the roof.
That's correct. Yes, same pricing issues, same lead time issues. Traffic signals are next to impossible to get. My office working remotely, from COVID-related issues to childcare issues related to COVID, trying to work with secretaries to work from home, and production is down, but it's kind of the same thing across the board for everyone, I guess. So we just deal with it.
Yeah, there are any types of things that our program can do to help with that, or is this sort of, you've got to wait it out until the terrain changes?
Ideally, if we could prove that when we bid the job, pricing for product, like Ann had said, was at this level and now it's tripled, and some compensation would be wonderful, but I doubt that'll happen as much as I would beg for it. And then, as we're a cyclical type of company and we usually come in at the end of jobs, so some compassion when promised lead times aren't hit for our material. Those are the two things that are going to be coming up really quick here as winter approaches.
Okay. I have notes. I have taken those
I appreciate
notes.
it.
Thank you for sharing that. Don, you might have some different perspectives of how a DBE business has been affected, but over at OES there, you guys have experience in all different kinds of areas of our WISDOT work.
Yeah, are you in relation to the COVID maybe? You're talking
Yes. Yep, COVID impacts.
Yeah, we have definitely noticed some changes in how our business is operated. You know, obviously the tradition, the things that everybody's seeing on who works where and when, but also how we solicit for our services has changed significantly, especially when we work maybe within the state and also out of state. We just don't have the same kind of contacts that we can get because of the COVID, and it makes it much more difficult for a DB to kind of get in with a team, do those kinds of things. You can do a lot of things with phone calls, and you can do a lot of things with emails, but without the face-to-face things that have been relating to COVID, it's really hurt a little bit of our ability, and we've actually lost some of our business that way in some of the, not only the in-state but other out of state. So it's been difficult, but again, that's what this business is all about for us. You got to just dig in and work harder to try and get after it. So.
Thank you for sharing that. I know there's nothing you can really do to make up for that face-to-face that you're talking about. You know, we do that as much as we can through these types of meetings. You know, but you're only looking at me right now, not seeing everyone. So yeah, that's a hard one to make up for, and we definitely found that to be the case too from our annual event, and last year not being able to have that in-person interaction. You know, that's really tough. So this year, fingers crossed, we are planning that in-person second day so we can really take advantage of the networking face-to-face.
Great.
So thank you. Thanks for that. Did I miss any DBs who are on the line who want to add to this conversation about impacts of COVID on your business? I know Camila's here, but I don't know if you necessarily want to represent Harkinson's experience, but happy to have your input if you want to share anything. You know, we work a lot with Camila remotely, but yes,
Yeah,
Camila.
yeah, Madalena, we're all remote, so it hasn't, besides coming in contact with COVID personally,
Sure.
it hasn't affected our work as of yet. So yeah, we've been able to maintain whatever WISDOT requests of us and get it done.
Well, good. Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of mixed experience that everyone has had here, which, you know, makes sense because all different types of businesses. I guess that if you're primarily remote, this has been something that you can weather maybe a little more easily. Some businesses have now developed the ability to be remote as well. But of course, you can't do that if you're pouring concrete or installing lighting. I guess you can't do that over the internet. So yeah, then you face those kinds of things. You're going to have to saw cut on the job. Thanks for sharing that. I think maybe it'd be a good time to just go around and call on everyone. See if you have anything you want to add to this particular conversation or any other comments you might like to add. I forget who that first number is, the 262330. Who called in on that line? 262 phone number? Okay, well, I'm not hearing from you, but I know that Jeff Peterson is 715. Jeff, anything you'd like to add?
No, appreciate being on the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Mitchell, what would you like to share?
I have nothing to share. I thank you very much. I've enjoyed listening to the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Beth, I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add beyond thanks very much for sharing with us earlier.
I have nothing additional. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Leah, questions or comments?
Yeah, I know that there was a lot covered in today's meeting. And so if you did not have an opportunity to share any feedback, or if you have any questions regarding the various topics, please feel free to follow up with us. We'd like to hear from you. We are always looking at ways to continue to improve our program. So your feedback is really important to us.
Absolutely. Thank you. Darren, any questions or comments?
I just want to comment on the material delivery and the supply chain issues out there. That truly is impacting everyone. And you asked Madalena what you can do and what the DOT can do. And one of the big things is contract execution after the bid letting. We as contractors, and it doesn't matter what level we're at, if you're large, small, one person firm, 1,000 people, we all have the same struggles. That some of those quotes we're getting are only being held for days, literally days after a bid letting. So we struggle with that. So I encourage the DOT to, have those contract executions that we know as contractors, those jobs are going to go through, because, we won't commit until we've got some sort of at least verbal or at least written commitment that says, yeah, the job's a go. But what you're hearing on this call is very real at all levels about this material issue. And then once we get through that contract award, we've got to really look at stored material payments, because in the bridge world where we are literally, have to put millions of dollars of piling on the ground and then handle it again and again and again to make a job go, so that we don't have a price escalation literally within 10 days after the bid let. So I just offer that to the DOT, that you execute these things as quickly as possible, because it's a trickle-down effect from us as a general contractor, then through all the subs and the DBEs and everything that are going to be doing work for us. So that's my only comment or input in regards to where we're at right now with the COVID and the interesting world we live in, Madalena.
Thank you for that. And yeah, there's Beth.
Yeah, maybe I'll, appreciate you bringing that up, Darren. And I guess we are, very sensitive to that. I think the big, sorry.
We can hear you again.
Are you back? Am I back?
You're back.
You are
okay,
now.
I'm not sure what happened there. So I'm not sure where I cut off, but appreciate Brian bringing up the issue. And, really our part in this is the award. And, the biggest part we have is the award. And we're always moving towards getting our awards made as quickly as possible. And once that award is made, of course, contract materials go out. And then, we're waiting for a lot of information to come back from the contractors. So, but, it is not our desire to have anything held on the department side. And we are moving things along as quickly as possible. Regarding, materials once executed, we do, have provisions in our contract that we can pay for stockpile materials. And I certainly hope that, if you're sending in those requests with the proof of, purchase and things like that, that we don't have any issues in the field with paying for those stockpile materials. And if we are, I guess I would hope that folks would contact us, so that we can, do some mentoring with some of our staff. So I guess that's it.
Thank you for bringing up the stockpiling, Beth, because I do try to remind DBEs to ask primes about this, because that can be applicable sometimes for them when trying to mitigate how to purchase large amounts and wait for payment. that stockpiling option can be really helpful, but the prime has to initiate it. And I also wanted to bring up the joint check possibility. This is in ASP3, but we've recently updated the form and put it on our contracting with DBE page. This has been particularly helpful in this recent time where DBE might not have enough of a line of credit or has gotten into a difficult spot with the supplier trying to pay down what they already owe, and the prime can enter into a joint check situation where the supplier will get paid right away, and we'll then work with that DBE so the prime can work with the DBE. So if you want more information, please ask me about it. Look at ASP3, but we're really trying to get the word out about that joint check option so that we get those supplies paid for. I see that a hand is up. Quinn.
Yeah, so I think what caught me off guard jumping into DOT work was my initial investment compared to my very first check. So like understanding the payment structure, like how I had no clue I could get paid a percentage of what the project was completed, and I would have to wait so long to get paid. And I think starting off, that that caused a bigger strain on other areas of work for me.
Sure, thank you. That's helpful because we can make sure we're, as we put together other toolkits like this GFE toolkit, we're wanting to really be focusing also on, I'm a DBE, now what? So what do you need to know? Yes, you're certified, but that doesn't mean you've got a job right now. It doesn't mean you know how to even identify the job. So all of those kinds of things and what you're pointing out now about getting paid are important things we want to include in the toolkit or kits. So thank you. So as we are moving along, I think Jill Fairman, we've made it to you.
Yeah, I guess one thing I just wanted to kind of bring up, beginning with the November let, which will advertise October 5th, we're going to have a little bit of a change up on the bid letting page. It's going to look a little different. We organized it a little different. You shouldn't have any further issues with viewing the PDF files in any browser. Could be a little bit, we're having a little trouble with some of the bookmarks depending on what browser you're in. So you may have to go page different if you are using the bookmarks. But we also tried in the left-hand menu to bring in as many links as we think you may use while you're doing your review of your bid process. And some of those things. So I have sent it out to industries. So you may or may not have seen it at this point. But as you go through it and with the November let and you have any questions or comments or suggestions, please feel free to let us know and we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Jill. Lori Green, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lori. Kyle at Integrity.
No, I really don't have anything to add. There's a lot of good information. I did have to step out for a second as we were going through that PowerPoint, but was wondering if we would be able to get that as a training tool for everybody within the organization.
Absolutely. We're going to post it also on the website. I think we had one final review, an internal WISDOT review that we are waiting for sign off on. And Kathleen could confirm that for me, but the intention is yes, post it on the website and we can certainly send a link to this group as well.
Great.
Yeah, Madalena, this is Leah. We can go ahead and roll it out and share it with folks. I think we're good.
Great. That is wonderful. Matt Grove, anything you would like to add or questions you might have?
Just confirming the supply chain issue is very frustrating for industry. And it's real. It's a real big risk for sustainability, especially for smaller companies. It's a huge risk for all companies, but for smaller ones, especially actually surviving those sort of hits is a real risk for both the companies as well as the department. Then the other regarding COVID, I think the hot topic right now is obviously the potential for mandatory vaccinations and what sort of impact that'll have on the workforce. So that's I know it's a very contentious issue. But it's, once again, it's another issue that there's a lot of questions being asked. We don't really have the answers for them right now at this point, but it's one that has a potential to have a huge impact on the availability of a workforce.
Yeah, thank you for bringing both of those up. I know that there are many challenges we still got here on the horizon. Okay, thank you, Matt. Kathleen, anything else you would like to add?
No, I just thank everybody for their time with the GFE presentation. Certainly, we hope to get that out to all prime contractors shortly and get it posted to the website. And if there's any questions that anybody has, always feel free to reach out either to myself or Madalena to answer any of those good faith effort questions.
Great, thanks so much. And Rosalind Roberson, Support
I'm here.
Services. What do you have for us, Roz?
Just the annual event. I know we've put together the save the date. I didn't get a chance to see it. I don't know if you posted it or not. I may have walked away, but it is March 2nd and 3rd of 2022.
Third and fourth, I want to
It's the
say.
third. I'm sorry. It's the 3rd and
That's okay.
4th. 3rd and 4th. It's a Thursday and a Friday, 2022. And it's day 1 will be virtually, and day 2 is in person at the Ingleside Hotel.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. We'll give you more information as we move forward. Thank you, Roz. Sarah, are you still with us from Integrity? Anything you'd like to share?
I am. I will second with Kyle. That toolkit that Kathleen presented is great. I know a couple months ago I talked with her regarding an airport bid, and she gave me a lot of that information. So it's really nice to see it and to have a kind of more of a structure on that GFE. So we're really looking forward to using that and getting our whole company familiar with that. And I just wanted to reiterate the fact of getting that email confirmation from the e-submit. So just make sure you're watching for that. So yeah,
yes.
Good presentation.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Absolutely. Thank you. Sharon Nix, would you like to share anything with the group?
Nothing to add on this end. Great information today, though.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Anybody that I missed who might like to add anything before we wrap up with Steve? Not seeing any hands or questions in the comments. So with that, Steve, would you like to take us out?
Sure, I won't take long since we are right up against the end of the meeting, scheduled end of the meeting, but I do want to thank everyone for their participation and the information that's come forth from both our folks, Madalena, and the rest of the team. All the information that they brought forward for us today was very helpful. I think it's great to have the explanation as well as the questions, because this stuff sometimes is not very obvious. It takes a long time to understand it and dig into the details, and Madeleine and the team, Leah, they continue to dig in the details to give that information out to the industry, both the primes and the DBs. So keep asking the questions. We'll keep digging to get the answers and make this as simplified as we can, but understand it can be a complex, complicated process as we work through it. Thanks for the comments also on the supply chain from Darren and others, Matt, and the rest of the group. Appreciate the information. We're very cognizant of the impacts that's happened. We're trying to do everything we can on our end to get those contracts awarded as soon as possible, get those contracts out the door, and understand that there are impacts associated with very short guarantees on the time for some of these supplies and materials that you are needing to secure. So appreciate that information that you brought forward and look forward to the next meeting as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for all your hard work this whole fiscal year. We're going to wrap up in a strong place to move forward into 2022. So thanks to everyone. Keep those questions coming. we want to optimize what we do and work the best that we can with you and for you. So communication is key there. Stick with us. Thank you very much and have a good rest of your week.